Brexit mess continues. The United Kingdom could be headed for a constitutional crisis after Scotland's Parliament rejected Prime Minister Theresa May's Brexit legislation. And so, once further down into the path of uncharted territory, the UK goes, and further complicates Theresa May's situation as she presses ahead with the Brexit bill regardless. Ken Clarke is the former British Chancellor of the Exchequer and father of the House, which means he's been in Parliament the longest, more than anybody else.
I've been there longer, more continuous than anybody else. Actually, there's a notorious left-wing firebrand called Dennis Skinner, and I'm 25 minutes ahead of him.
Really?
He got sworn in after me. I saved the House from Dennis Skinner as father of the House by 25 minutes.
Excellent.
So the two of us have been there far longer than anybody else.
Right. Now, let's talk about this Brexit. The question of... There's two issues here. First, the customs union or no customs union, and the indecision within Cabinet and the seeming failure of Cabinet, even after Theresa May said, go away and decide amongst yourselves and we'll decide what we're going to do.
Well, the Cabinet's incapable of agreeing what it wants in the negotiations, which is a serious crisis. Customs union, in my opinion, is essential, but she's ruled that out unnecessarily. So we need some arrangement that keeps our trade reasonably barrier-free with Europe, indeed barrier-free altogether, if we possibly can. And at the moment, we're in deadlock inside the government. Time is running out. By the end of June, we've got to have settled this. And we really must come up with a solution that doesn't damage our economy and at the same time doesn't cause a crisis in Ireland.
You, with respect, cannot do that. They are mutually exclusive. It is not possible to find a solution, particularly on the Northern Ireland problem or issue, that doesn't allow for freedom of movement and all the other issues.
I agree. I mean, you say with respect to me, I'm someone who says that when we leave the European Union, it's perfectly possible to stay in the single market and in the customs union.
Not without the four pillars.
What do you mean without the four?
You know, freedom of movement, freedom of labour, freedom of capital.
Well, I'm probably the most pro-European people in that economy.
So let's...
but you can modify that.
Right.
So that's what you should negotiate. See if we could tighten up freedom of movement a bit and all that. But going back to where we are, you're right about Ireland. And I think one thing that was reassured by these curious briefing meetings yesterday, and I went to one, where the Prime Minister sort of talked to us about it all, she was very sound on the Irish border, in my opinion. She realises the constitutional significance of alienating nationalist and Republican opinion there. There's got to be no fixed frontier, no infrastructure put in place. We do need an open border. Now, I think that means that you have a reasonably open border at Dover, at Holyhead, elsewhere. It means a customs arrangement where, by and large, we have an understanding about external tariffs and we have some regulatory alignment. But the Cabinet is a million miles from getting there. Reality may take them there.
OK. That will also require the Europeans, Michel Barnier, Angela Merkel, and perhaps even at the level of the Council, to say this is now intractable. We've got to move towards the British position if they move towards our position.
Well, actually, I think the Europeans, who also, that no sensible person either side of the Channel wants to see no deal, it all collapsing, if they can possibly avoid it. I think what I've described, where there is no fixed border, where there is a customs arrangement that resembles what we've got, and there is a reasonable degree of regulatory alignment, I think that's possible. What the Europeans would have preferred, the other Europeans, is what I would have preferred, which is why don't we stick with basically the single market and the customs union we've got. But what the customs arrangement, which Theresa May describes sometimes, she gets very near describing something that is not a million miles.
Is it workable?
What we've got.
Is it workable to have a customs arrangement with variable tariffs where the government might reimburse on some versus others? Because key to this is that the UK still has the ability to do third-party trade deals.
That's not the key. That's the snag. That is being insisted on.
But
that's why we have her latest idea, which I thought the Cabinet was going to agree to, was customs partnership. And that means, because the problem is, you know, you've got to have an external wall normally if you're not having a free border. And what she said was, where our tariffs differ, because we have different rules, we'll correct the tariffs at the EU rate. And if the British rate's lower, we'll reimburse businesses. Now, I regard that as a bureaucratic nightmare.
It is.
You've also got to have some understanding on regulatory convergence. what my hope was that they'd agree that last week in this warring cabinet, that this week they'd be sitting down with the technocrats to see if you can get that to work. That's all slipped and they pushed it off down the road again. Right. End of June's the deadline.
So finally, and briefly, Mr. Clarke, you were in cabinet during some of the worst days of
Maastricht.
No, but also miners' strike, the whole thing. You have seen cabinet at its worst moments.
I know what you're going to ask. Everybody asks me. I've never seen anything as chaotic as this. No, this is the maddest political situation I've ever seen. What worries me, this is one of the most important crises in British politics of modern times. We're taking decisions that make a big effect on the prosperity and well-being of my children and grandchildren.
Good to see you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. Can't put it more bluntly than that.